Hey there, Pod Pals. Are you a print-on-demand creator looking to stay ahead of the curve? You want to know exactly when to launch your designs for every key season and event? How about a chuckle with an extra dad joke to brighten your day? If you said yes to any of these, then it's time to join the Print on Demand Cast VIP list. As a VIP, you'll get our free annual design calendar, an amazing guide to help you time your creations perfectly throughout the year. And of course, we'll include a bonus dad joke each week as well. Signing up couldn't be easier. Just visit printondemandcast.com/VIP and enter your email. Don't let another day of potential pass you by. Become a part of the VIP list, grab your annual design calendar, and let's dive into a year of inspired creating together. We'll see you on the other side.
Welcome back to the Print on Demand Cast. In this week's episode, we talk about how to systemize your path to print on demand profits. Let's get into it.
Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, pod pals. Welcome to the Print on Demand Cast. It's great to be coming to you live to tape with Travis Ross, as always, from Make Your Mark Design. Travis, happy Tuesday. Quickly, let's chop up the waffle real quick. How has your week been? How was your weekend? I know you were in Kansas. There was some band action happening for you, but how was that? How are you? And what's new?
Nothing too much. Yeah, we went to Kansas on a little overnighter, played at this bar. We've played it a few times and they paid for our hotel and stuff. And so
Nice.
we go out there and have a great time and stay the night. And it's kind of a little fun, paid vacation almost, with some of my good friends. My bandmates are my good friends. So it was fun. And then the other cool thing was that Arsenal went to top of the table by beating they play. I don't remember who they played, but then the two teams that were ahead of them, Man City and Liverpool, tied, or in football terms, they had a draw. And so now Arsenal is actually ahead of them in the Premier League table, number one, which is pretty awesome. And then just not even an hour ago, they just went through to the next round of the Champions League on penalty kicks against Porto. And I was screaming upstairs in my living room, which is, may or may not have been the reason I asked you to push back the recording time a half an hour.
Yeah, for those listening, last year I went to Long Beach with Travis for the trade show there. And I had the privilege of watching an Arsenal game with him in our hotel room the morning we left. And it was
You're welcome.
Insane. I thought you were passionate. I've never watched a Chiefs game with you, to be fair, but I would have assumed that Chiefs would be the most passionate thing. I feel like you were extra about the soccer, but But hey,
I could go either way. I love my Chiefs and I love my Arsenal. So, but yeah, that was my weekend. And how was yours?
It was good. Had a poker night the night that you were there in.
I missed it
in Kansas. I guess. It was one of those things where it got super late, and Nate, who was like, dude, we could be here all night. We're like, yeah, let's just chop it. We each walked away with like $80 and
nice.
It was a good night and had a great time. Weekend other than that was pretty relaxing, and now apparently we're getting ready for some snow, but which is tragic. But
it's Colorado for you.
Deceptive spring is the stage of seasons we're in right now. So with all of that being said, we're going to get this week. There is no point of interest, by the way, dear listener. There is the main event, obviously, about talking about how to systemize your path to print on demand profits. No point of interest. Travis has some dad duties to do to get to taking your son to basketball practice. So we went ahead and just said, hey, let's omit the point of interest. But we would never, ever omit everybody's favorite segment of the show, the weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
All right, Travis, what you got?
Well, I recently found that and this shocked me a little bit. Horses have been found to be the fastest animals in the world.
Really?
According to this recent Gallup poll.
If you're offended by that joke, I completely agree.
Only because only reason you'd be offended is because that was a groaner. But I like it, and you guys will use it. I know you will. It's about that time of year or season in our country's life where there's lots of polls and polling, and so feel free to use that around the water cooler. So last week we actually did a shout out of a review, and so this week we figured, hey, let's do the same thing. Let's shout out another review, but this time a little bit different, Travis. It's a little bit of a different feel. Why, you might ask, dear listener? Because this one's not, well, they're not fans of us. Here it is. It's a 1-star review, and it reads, "Get to the point. Hours of nonsense chatting about everything apart from actual useful information. Disappointing channel, to say the least. Save your time and avoid." So that is from Ollie JH, if that is your real name. But hey, listen, we understand completely that we're not everybody's cup of tea, right? We started this as a passion project. A lot of what you hear and experience is really not much different from just a conversation that Travis and I would have in everyday life. We're just goofy guys that have fun, like to joke around and just, shoot the breeze. And we also enjoy talking about the print-on-demand industry. I would take exception with that review in the hours of nonsense. I feel like maybe accumulatively over 185 episodes, I challenge you to find a podcast that doesn't have at least some kind of amount of nonsense aside from whatever it is they bill as the actual, content that they're producing. But we just thought we'd share that one. We share a lot of 5-star reviews, but it's like, we're equal opportunity here. We'll share a 1-star review if you want to leave it. And then it doesn't mean we'll necessarily be taking it all that seriously. But Travis, what are your thoughts on that, on Ollie JH and their review of the show?
I think, the knee-jerk reaction is to go, well, nuh-uh, or start defending yourself and all of that. But, one of the things we've done probably in the last 20 or so shows is we started adding like show notes or not show notes, but chapter markers, at least on YouTube. So people could go to different sections if they want to skip. And that was actually because someone said, hey, sometimes I just want to get to the meat and potatoes of it. And I get that, so we try to do that. But I do think while we do have like the dad joke segment and the funny stuff and all that, that's just because that's our personality. And, like you said, every print on demand show is not necessarily going to be your cup of tea. And that's fine. That's why there's that's why there's room for so much content and so many content creators, because everybody can kind of do different things. To
be fair, one of the reasons we started the show as well is because the shows that were out there weren't our cup of tea. So we thought, well, we'll just do this ourselves. And to that end, Ollie JH, there's tons of room for some extra content. So let us know when you launch your podcast, and we will be sure to listen and support. Why? Because the more content, the better. It's great to hear from other people. So, that's my only rebuttal is.
Yeah. And I would say, I think there's a lot of good content that we provide and a lot of good information about the print on demand industry. And, you just have to kind of wade through the first 10 minutes or so. Sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's only 5. It just depends on how we're feeling and how slap happy we are at the moment.
Yes. And how many beverages we're drinking whilst recording or before recording. So it all is just really dependent. So Ollie HJ, thank you for your 1-star review. And guess what? It's only 10 minutes until the point of the show for this particular episode as we go to this week's main event. right, this week's main event, Systemize Your Path to Print on Demand Profits. On this episode, we're breaking down an easy step-by-step process for creating consistent growth through focusing on listings per week for your print on demand business. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your existing store to new heights, having a weekly system will certainly serve you well. So that's what we're getting into. Travis, anything else that you want to kind of say before we got to dive into what this is going to be?
Sure. So a caveat or two would be this can and likely will look different for all the businesses that are listening right now, or all the people that are listening that have businesses, because businesses are unique, just like people are unique. Businesses are unique. There might be some similarities, but there's also going to be some differences. And so the process we're about to lay out is in no way complete or cookie cutter. It's honestly just a way to get you guys to start thinking about what it looks like to systematize certain areas of your business. And you'll undoubtedly have things you'll want to add to what we're going to talk about, because this is kind of a basic thing. And then hopefully that, moves you into more areas of systemization in other areas of your business, because, I love SOPs, which are standard operating procedures. And this is kind of dipping your toe in the water. I heard someone talk about on a forum I was, looking at, and they were like, "Hey, I want to do 100 listings a week. And do you think I can get, a VA to do that? And how do I lay this all out?" Well, this is how you would do that. Or a way, something that would be like what we're about to talk about. So I don't know how many caveats that is, but you choose.
Yeah. You tell us. How many was that? So, all right, so let's get into it. Let's dive into 3 core components for executing a strategy for how many listings per week you'd like to create. And the first step, of course, is set the goal. Set the goal for the week. So episode 176 in the archives, we talk about the difference between achievement-based goals and habit-based goals, which is something that is a concept rather that is kind of gleaned from James Clear in his book called Atomic Habits. I'm currently reading through the book right now for the first time. I'd heard a lot about it. And so finally, a friend of mine was like, I haven't read this. Have you read this? No, we should read it. So that's what we're doing, and kind of going over it weekly. And so if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Travis, I know you think very highly of this book as well.
Yeah. If you want to use our affiliate link to buy the book, it's printondemandcast.com/atomic habits. But I mean, even if you don't, I don't care. Just go get it, because it's really awesome. There's a couple things he said about setting goals that we really go into it in episode 176. But I thought in light of kind of what we're talking about, it made sense to kind of regurgitate some of that information. But it's not an exact quote, but what he said really changed my thoughts on how to set goals and what they do and what they look like. And so This is what he said. He said, "We think our goals should be focused on changing our results, but the results are not the problem. What we really need to change are the systems that cause those results." And I thought, man, that's genius, and it really rings true in pretty much every type of goal setting situation you could find yourself in. It's not necessarily, we're not changing the results. The best goals actually change the systems that create results, because no matter what result you're getting, it's coming from a system or lack of one. But even the lack of one is kind of a system. It like sets you up for the result. You've heard that. What is that?
Right.
You are exactly where the sum total of all of your choices in your life have brought you, Sure. And that's kind of the idea here, So as we're talking through this, keep that in mind. Keep the idea of the system being the thing that produces the results that you want versus, well, I just want to change my results. Well, that's good, but how are you going to go about doing that? And that's what we're talking about.
Sure. Absolutely. So what you're going to want to do is define your objectives around listings. How many products will you list per week? On which platforms will you list them? And outline your plan of attack to anchor your efforts. And so oftentimes, Travis, you can work backwards. So If you have a
Mhm.
monthly or quarterly goal, you can break it down here. You can actually kind of break it into bite-sized pieces if you have that larger goal in mind, kind of reverse engineer how you get there in this particular process.
Yeah, I mean, I think always working from the result that you want and working backwards from that. I used to work for a guy who used to say, before we make a decision on this thing, let's first define the actual problem that we're trying to solve, and so that's kind of the same idea. The problem is, well, I don't list, a certain number of listings every month, and I want
Yeah.
to. So let's say, the problem is I'm not currently listing 100 products per month. Maybe
Right.
it's 300, maybe it's 50, whatever that number is for you. And so if I want to list 100 products a month, well, that's about 25 a week. And, I can probably live with 25 a week. It might not be exactly 100 per month, but that's a good idea. So the first question you have to ask is 25 a week realistic? Can I do that?
Right.
And then if I'm like, yep, I believe I can, I have enough support, or I have enough time, or I have, what I need to do that. Well, which platform or platforms are you going to list these things on? And then
Sure.
are you going to list all 25 on all the platforms that you have, or are you going
Right.
to pick and choose? Or do you only have one platform and it doesn't matter? You see, like I was talking about, every single one of these businesses and these steps kind of have to be fine-tuned for your specific situation, for your business's situation. And so continue to think through that, but that's kind of how you work backward from that original goal of
Yep.
100 a month or whatever that number is.
Sure. And the next step from there, you would schedule your listings. So you can map out your specific weekly cadence for new listings. So for example, let's say if you wanted to get 10 listings created per week, it could look like this. On Monday, you have the concept for 10 new design ideas. On Tuesday, you create the finished digital designs. Wednesday, you upload 5 of them to Etsy. Thursday, you add 5 to your Shopify store. And Friday, you review the analytics to identify the top performers from the previous week and then tweak and optimize from there and make sure that, you're really dialing in on your winners and seeing what's not performing as well. And I will say too, the one thing in my experience in this particular phase of like the creation of designs, one thing I had to do is kind of divorce myself from the ones that I thought were just going to kill it, and not really kind of go in neutral. Because at the analytic review stage, you can get real bummed out if you think if the one that you're like, man, this is my best work, it's going to crush it, and it maybe doesn't do too well, and it could be for a number of factors, but just lean into what the numbers are saying is working and not try and hold on to something because you like it and it's just not firing, it's not clicking, and then you're just wasting that energy instead of like, okay, that wasn't great, I thought it was going to be better, we're going to move on and we're going to focus on the things that are actually performing.
Yeah, that week outline kind of, I would say that's probably best for like a solopreneur, somebody who's just doing it themselves, because there are obviously things in your business that could change what this looks like. Do you have a VA? If you have a VA, then maybe this looks a little different. You can probably get a little more done because you have more help. Or are you only working on this business a couple hours a day, or even like 2 nights a week or something? That's going to change that schedule. And so the key here is, we talk about comparison being the thief of joy. Don't compare your business to another one. Find out what works for you, and be okay with that. Be like, hey man, I've got a plan, and if I implement that plan, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing, I've succeeded. And I think that, that goes back to kind of a mindset of not allowing yourself to fall into that trap of comparison, because there are people who do have full teams and they do this full time. I do this full time, and so I'm probably going to do more listings per week than you are if you're only doing it by yourself and you're only doing it 2 nights a week. I mean, that's just logic. It's not, there's nothing that you should feel bad about in that particular scenario, because you have a different life experience than I have. We're in different places and it's totally fine. I have different goals than you're going to have. So I think the idea behind this, though, is to logically lay out your week in such a way that you have tangible like things that you're going to actually do every day you're working when it comes to this particular part of your business. Because there's a whole lot of other parts of your business that you can also systemize, but we're not going to get into those. We're just talking about getting listings up, and if you're on Etsy and you're on Amazon and you're on Walmart and you're on merch, I mean, that's a lot of things to push out, not even just the creation of those products, but actually pushing them out and actually creating all those listings. So all of these things come into play when we're talking about what does your week actually look like when we're talking about scheduling listings. Right.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the last piece of this too is just to analyze and expand. So stick to your schedule. Again, track detailed performance data by listing, double down, like I said, on what sells, and expand your catalog over time and let the numbers guide your path. And had I read a little bit more ahead in the notes, I wouldn't have just upcut this whole point in what I just said in the previous point. But I digress. Exactly like what it says there. What I was talking about is letting the numbers dictate the direction you move as opposed to what you're emotionally attached to. And then just create a weekly tracker that helps you stay accountable to your goals. I'll never forget, Trent Deersmid, back in when we were both selling Amazon, we went to a wholesale conference formula conference, and he was speaking, and he talked about the cold calls, because in that particular scenario, the game was reaching out to people for wholesale. And so I remember him saying, like, the way he had his accountability system was simply there was one plate or one tiny container with paper clips and one that was empty, and he had to get so many paper clips over to that thing by the end of the day to meet his goal for calls. So that was his way of keeping like something to track and keep accountability. So there's a lot of different ideas when it comes to ways to keep yourself accountable, but it's important that you do that so that you're staying accountable to the process and able to then track the growth through the consistency of sticking to whatever it is that you decide to implement.
Yeah, I mean, I love Google Sheets and Excel and all that stuff, and I think something like this would be really easy to create in Google Sheets. And I also do want to say, if you don't create a weekly tracker, you likely will not complete or you will not stay on track with these goals. Other things will sneak in, and so it literally could be as easy as a Google Sheet with, the days of the week over here and the tasks, across the thing. And then you just X, or whatever as you do them, and you basically check it off, every single week. And then rinse and repeat every week. And then as you're going, you're doing this, you're analyzing it. Okay. You know what? 25 was really hard last week because I had to take my son to basketball and, or I was sick or whatever. And so first of all, I'm going to let myself off the hook, but maybe I want to reevaluate some of these goals. Maybe I'm only going to do 20, on the weeks that or during the season that my son's in basketball, or whatever that particular season of your life looks like. Maybe that changes. So again, it's always going to look different. And, if you don't write it down, you won't do it. So that's like, I don't care if it's in a Google Sheet, on a computer somewhere. But you've got to put something down to where you're holding yourself accountable to it. Recently, me and my wife, we decided we were going to start on Mondays, in the morning. We get together and we have, here, I'll pull it up over here. I think I have it. And we have a spreadsheet that I have a tab. She has a tab. And then we have the week of, and then, we go down, put the week, whatever it is. And then we have a column for work, family, marriage, spiritual, health, and recreation. And we put goals in all of those on Monday morning. And as we accomplish them, we just change the cell to green,
Right.
But I mean, like for the marriage one, it was give a 10-second hug 5 times, that's a great goal, and
Yeah.
um, and so I'm not saying, all I'm saying is like every week I have somebody accountable to me, and I am accountable to my wife, that we're going to open up this spreadsheet and we're going to talk about one of the things that we said, I give you permission to help me with my goals. Like, what would be a good goal for me this week with my health? What would be a good goal this week with my family or my kids, because I have one for marriage also. And so we're able to kind of speak into each other's goals, and it creates this accountability that it's pretty funny. Like every time I'd come over to her and I'd open my arms, she's like, "Oh, you're crossing a goal off." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's a good goal." And I'd hug her for, 10 seconds or whatever. I'm like, "Yeah, but you like it and I like it." And okay, but it kind of created a fun environment, but I digress. My point is that having that accountability, even if it's just yourself, having that, maybe have a timer that, or an alarm that comes on once a week to where you have to look at it and fill it out, something like that.
Right.
It could be very simple. But if you don't do it, it won't happen.
Right.
I mean, I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah. The accountability piece is huge. And that's a part of, even like I said, I was reading that book, Atomic Habits, and my accountability is every week I'm meeting with my friend, or, he's actually my pastor at my church. So, we catch up frequently, but knowing like every week we're going to just chat through, what do you think about that chapter? How is that applicable to your life? Where are you needing to get a little bit better in these areas, and how, all that kind of stuff. So even that accountability of like, once a week, I'm calling a guy that I'm allowing to speak into my business, and he's going to hold me accountable to, where am I? What am I doing? And is this done? And so just having that, healthy pressure of making sure that things are getting done. And to your point, Travis, if there's, some grace, if your kids are busy, if you have children, or just if life happens, it's like, okay, well, there's some grace there. But for the most part, we're going to try and hit this consistently to see that growth happen. So,
yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll put something together that's very super simple, a Google Doc that you can like get, and I'll post it in the group sometime this week towards, after this is dropped, obviously. So sometimes after Wednesday at 3 p.m. Mountain Time, I'll post something in there that you guys can, copy it over to your Google and use it or change it or tweak it or whatever, just as something, as an idea to get you started, kind of on this idea of weekly listing creation.
Absolutely.
So bonus.
That's awesome. Yeah, that'll be huge.
Yeah.
Love it.
Like we said at the beginning, this whole listing thing, it's just the start. Take these ideas, build on them for every single part of your business. How do you, there's so much to this, but figure out systems and let this be just the basic creation, the bottom line kind of first step towards it. If you want to break even this down even further, you can, because you could do it by niche and say, I'm going to create, 10 in this niche and 10 in this niche every week. And that means that, and then how am I going to get those design ideas? Well, here's a systemized standard operating procedure for how me and my business, me and an eventual VA that I want to hire, are going to come up with the ideas for the designs. And you're just building this thing out more and more and more. And you will make things that you're not using in 6 months because you will outgrow them, or you will have a better idea and you will change things. And that's totally fine. The goal here is to just start building these processes, whatever it takes and wherever it takes you. Nobody knows. Hopefully it'll take you to, like what we said, print on demand profits. We just said that because it's a cool title for an episode, but you get the idea. It's going to look different for your business, and that's okay. And it should. And then take a listen to episode 176 about goal setting if you want some more help in that area too.
Absolutely. Travis, this is a record, right?
Is it?
30 minutes.
Wow, that means only 20 minutes of good information and 10 minutes of not good information. So
yeah, sorry.
2/3.
Sorry, guys.
So you get nothing.
Yeah, so sorry to disappoint. Hope you enjoyed those 10 minutes and the 20 minutes of utter nonsense that we're known for. # 1 star. Okay, so thank you guys so much for listening. Look out for that, like Travis said in the Facebook group, that the kind of accountability spreadsheet that he was talking about be a huge tool and asset for you guys to use and implement. And then also, if you haven't already, sign up for our VIP list or email list. You can go to printondemancast.com/VIP to get signed up for that. You'll get more insights, more tips, some stuff that we don't cover on the show, or a recap of what we did cover on the show, and of course a bonus dad joke, which is what everyone really is excited about. And in exchange for signing up, you'll get an annual design calendar, which will help you kind of plan out exactly what you should be planning on in terms of designs and themes that you should be leaning towards or getting ready to sell for. And so just kind of help you keep organized as well in that whole process of even the listing creation, the design creation. You can always reference that and see, okay, what's coming up? What should I have in the pipeline? What do I need to be preparing for? So you'll get that as well. Travis, anything else about the VIP list that the people need to know?
No, I think you covered it all. You guys just, we do get a lot of people signing up for it. And if you haven't got your VIP list for whatever reason, or your annual design calendar, just reply to one of those emails and say, hey, I didn't get it. Send it. And we'll send it.
Yes, absolutely. So looking forward to being back here, bringing you fresh new content next week. But until then, for Travis, I'm Josiah. We'll see you right here on the Print on Demand cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe, thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.
In a world where businesses everywhere are trying to make print-on-demand sales, one podcast goes above and beyond every week to bring the most POD-specific information there is, all to help save the day, every day. Don't succumb to the enemies of your print-on-demand business. Sign up today for the Print on Demand Cast VIP email at printondemandcast.com/VIP. This time, it's for real.